America. It's September 29th, 2025. I'm Erickson. These are the four things you need to know this afternoon before you get home. Up first, the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel are, as I'm recording this, speaking in the East Room of the White House after a closed-door meeting to gauge Prime Minister Netanyahu's support of a plan designed by President Trump for peace in Gaza. Israel, the United States, Indonesia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Jordan, and other Arab partners are now on board this plan. It's contingent on whether or not Hamas will support it. Hamas will be required to hand over all of the hostages, living or dead, to Israel. For every Israeli hostage released, Israel will release 15 people detained by Israel or the bodies of those detained by Israel, as well as over 1,000 other individuals from Gaza who have been arrested by Israel, including a number that have been given life in prison in Israel. Hamas will have to lay down its arms, and its members who do lay down their arms will be given amnesty and will be given travel out of Gaza and Israel and protection in other countries if they so choose. If Hamas rejects the plan, then the United States and Israel will work together, with Israel leading the way to eliminate all of Hamas. Now, the plan calls for the redevelopment of Gaza for the benefit of the Gazans, the president making clear that the people of Gaza will not be forced to leave Gaza during the rebuilding effort, and an internal security force will be developed, led by the United States and Arab partners, teaching policing skills to the people of the Palestinian territory, while the people of Gaza are working to get up and running a new government that will be overseen by the President of the United States, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and others for the redevelopment of Gaza. Israel will be required to remove its forces if Hamas accepts the plan to a predetermined line for receipt of the hostages, and once the hostages and the bodies of the deceased are received, will be required to leave Gaza altogether, handing over the territory to this new internal security force led by outside Arab partners in the United States. We'll see if Hamas agrees. Some of the plan is still nebulous, but the president is working to get an end to this war. While the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel were speaking to the White House, it was an interesting juxtaposition. The President of Iran is speaking to the United Nations this afternoon, while Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump were speaking at the White House. The Iranian president was denouncing Israel at the United Nations behind the podium there at the General Assembly. He was preceded by the president of Poland. The president of Iran is blasting Israel for killing journalists and other civilians in Gaza and for committing genocide in Gaza, clearly making it clear that Iran means no peace and intends no peace with Israel, which raises a question: will Iran provide an incentive to Hamas to continue its terror campaign in the Middle East, whether this deal from President Trump goes through or not? Midnight Tuesday is the deadline for the Democrats to agree to a continuing resolution to keep the government of the United States open. At midnight on Tuesday, all major government functions will cease except defense-keeping operations, law enforcement, and things like that. Social Security checks will go out to people. Military and governmental paychecks will not go out. Judges, members of Congress, career staffers, the military, they won't get paid until the government reopens. The Democrats have boxed themselves into a corner, needing to feed the anger of their left-wing base. They're saying they will not support any funding of this tyrannical regime. However, if this government will extend health care benefits outside a continuing resolution, then they'll fund the government. Those health care benefits have to include illegal aliens. In other words, the Democratic argument is we're shutting down the government unless you fund health care for illegal aliens. That may play well with the Democratic base, but considering how unpopular the Democrats are, it's probably not going to play well with anybody else. This is the madness that the Democratic Party is now involved in with the Democratic base. The base demands to see the Democrats fighting. They don't care whether it's a smart fight or a dumb fight. They just want to see the fight. But the rest of the United States doesn't really want the fight. They actually want the government funded, except for people like me, conservatives, who think it's too big. Nonetheless, do you think independent voters will be persuaded by the Democratic argument that this is a tyranny we refuse to fund unless we fund illegal alien health care? Probably not a compelling message, except for the base of the Democratic Party, that within the bubble of the media, within the bubble of the press corps, within the bubble of the progressive left, They think this is normal. They think this is sound messaging, and they have no one within the bubble willing to tell them it's madness. And so they will continue to get crazier, and the government just might shut down. If the government does shut down, the Labor Department is advising everyone today it will not release key data on jobs and inflation in the next week. There's supposed to be a big key jobs report released on Friday that should give us a sense of the impact of tariffs on the economy. It won't happen if the government shuts down. Likewise, the Bureau of Labor Statistics will shut down, so they will be behind in collecting data on inflation that the Federal Reserve is going to need to make key determinations in the next month what to do with inflation. Putting the Bureau of Labor Statistics behind when it already doesn't have a great track record is going to be fraught with problems for the economy, for the people who set the interest rates, and for the people who interpret the data. But that's part of coming with the government shutdown, and that's part of dealing with the Democrats right now. So if the government shuts down, we're not going to get a lot of labor data and economic data we would otherwise get, which will allow the markets to rely on the outside private sector data, which we now know is not actually as good as the already flawed Labor Department data, which is going to be fun times for the markets. I'm Erick Erickson. These are the 4 things you need to know this afternoon before you get home. In the meantime, please stay engaged, stay informed, and above all else, please keep the faith.